Hello and welcome to Sim.bc, where right now is 15:49. As you can see outside, it is sunny as all hell out there. Yeah, my terminology might have been tainted by me looking at like biblical stuff all over the place. Why? Well, because we're looking into evil. Yeah, that's what we're doing. Segueing directly in. I'm just gonna mention a thing, yeah, from a previous video talking about stereotypes. And one thing that I failed to mention when it came to stereotypes is that, well, stereotypes actually might be a bit of an anchor point as well, that you can relate to something that happened in the past, and you anchored that feeling, that perception of a what should we say, that perception of an act, that perception of a transparency of actions that went down, and you use that yet again as an anchor point for reviewing future events. So you're trying to say that, well, this has happened before, that is why this is happening in the future. Kind of ish, in a way. I think that I failed to mention that, or that I missed entirely to mention that. Now, fortunately, I was before the comment section in this one. So I actually corrected myself. I was looking through me notes here, yeah, looking through me schedule, and whilst looking through the schedule, I realized that today we're going to take on quite a humongous task in a way, and I'm going to strip it through quite quickly. Why? Well, because I'm going to go to the gym, and as I said, it's sunny outside. Why stand here and just, being inside when it's sunny outside? Yeah, because that must be the opposite of being evil, right? Going out in the sun, actually enjoying life, actually feeling good and getting all of them positive vibes should be the opposite to what we're actually discussing in here, just misery and evil and bad things happening. No, you should actually go out and enjoy it while it lasts. However, that's not why you're here, mates. No. You're not here to listen to me talking about evil. Oh, wait. Yeah, you are. But you're not here to listen to me talking about past videos or future videos or what I'm going to do after this. You're here to listen to me talking about what we're going to do right now. And what we're going to do right now, as given by the title, is that we are going to review-ish, kind of, some of the points at least from The Psychology of Evil. And The Psychology of Evil is quite an extensive piece of literature, so to say, so we're just going to work with it. What should we say? A questionnaire, so to say, if you've read it. We're going to look at some different questions relating to evil actions and evil parts of the work. Going in and starting off, I have some text here, yeah, you probably can see it, a PDF, so that I actually can read it straight off, because there are some things, like definitions, that we kind of need to work with. So going to start with stating Psychology of Evil, the Lucifer effect, something that I found was quite interesting, and something that I wish that I'd found a bit earlier when actually working with the 7 Deadly Sins. Not that these necessarily had anything to do with the Lucifer effect, but just would have been a nice touch to kind of combine them. So I'm going to start off with just reading that off for you. The Lucifer effect. A Lucifer figure or motif exists in numerous religions and mythologies. Zimbardo uses the interpretation of the Lucifer effect that Lucifer was God's favorite angel until Lucifer's jealousy caused him to be cast out of heaven, and so Lucifer takes revenge on God by tempting man. Zimbardo, and excuse me, I'm probably butchering the name here as usual. Zimbardo uses this term because he believes that the line between good and evil is permeable and movable and not fixed, which basically means that you can move on and, forth and back. We're going to discuss that later. Zimbardo believes that human beings are fundamentally good and made evil. Key word there, they're made evil, not born to be either one or the other. The Psychology of Evil intends to explain how good people turn evil and consequently how they can be turned back to good. Which I thought was kind of an interesting definition of evil in and within itself, that everybody is actually born good, right? Or rather, they're neither born good nor are they born evil. They're born kind of neutral, right? But that is to say they aren't born evil. We're making them evil, we're making them good. Or them themselves are making themselves evil or making themselves good based on the context in where they're growing up, the choices that they do make, and so on and so forth. I thought it was kind of an interesting take on the entire discussion, since what I've been trying to rather what I've really been trying to push is the entire idea that you're failing yourself, or that you're doing something on somebody else's expense, yeah? But actually, right here, we're seeing that society actually plays a role in forming you as an individual towards these different types of, well, what you would say, not goals, but towards these type of spectrums here, which is kind of interesting. So what are we going to look into? There are many things here which I would like to go into. For instance, the Milgram experiment, we're going to take that up. Let's see if I'm correct. Tomorrow, right? Or the 2nd of April. It's either tomorrow or the 2nd of April, because the Prisoner's Dilemma is going to be one of those as well. And then, yeah, here we have the Stanford's Prison Dilemma, the power of anonymity. Wow, the power of anonymity. You know, being anonymous. I really can't say that for some reason. It's hard, but it's something that we're going to touch on when we're on both the Stanford Prison Experiment. Social pressure, that's not the one, because I think that we kind of have covered that already with, you know, my interpretation of an event, your interpretation of an event, that we're not the same, we're not really the same all of the time. That basically means that you can do one thing, I can perceive it in one way, and I can do something and you can perceive it in another way, which is kind of the social process as well. The bystander effects, we're going to get into that. I need a hero versus I am a hero, we're going to get into that. And what about you? Yeah, now we're going into something that I thought was quite extraordinary and quite interesting, actually, when looking at the definition that was brought up and the 3 different stages, so to say, that you can take and that you can move, you know, between. And based on my understanding after reading the entire, you know, the piece, so to say, reading the different questions as of now, trying to indulge in some of the critique that has been, well, moved towards, or what do you say, the vector of the force of the direction of critique that has been directed, yeah, exactly, towards this piece of literature. After reading all of those, or not all, obviously, but a lot of it, a lot that I've been coming in contact with, I thought this was going to be quite interesting, because what they're discussing is 3 different paths, and the 3 different paths are that you can either be a perpetrator of evil, so basically you can be the epitome of evil, you can be the identification of evil, you can be evil in and within itself, or you can be an passive, inactive, but simultaneously active in both doing good and doing bad. Or at least that's what I've been able to gather so far. I think that they're saying it in a particular other manner. They're saying path 2 is you become guilty or passive inaction, which I would say is partially or passively then inactive both towards good and towards evil. What's their meaning more is like, it's kind of neutral, but I'd say, well, if you're neutral in a situation where something good is going on, aren't you really supporting the good that's going on, because you're not actively fighting against it? Simultaneously, if something really bad is happening and you're neutral, so to say, then you're kind of actively, by taking a passive approach, supporting the evil that is going on. Now, I know that some people will say like, hey, but what if you're in a dictatorship and you just don't do anything about it? Is that you being passive and actually supporting the dictatorship, even though the dictatorship might be evil? And I'm like, no, of course you need to be able to reason on like a plausible level of where you can actually act, but perhaps you can take smaller steps towards actually making it a better place. It's, you know, if you take it to the extremes, nothing really works. However, the third path is you become a hero, and the hero in this concept is basically that you're taking on the role of being good all of the time. You're helping your fellow people, you're helping your fellow humans, you're doing everything that you can to actually help. And I think that they had a kind of interesting definition up here as well. Yeah, definition of evil as the exercise of power to intentionally harm psychologically then, or hurt physically, and or destroy mortally, and commit crimes against humanity. And the entire idea of the hero is to stand against these things. So basically saying that, well, if there is a crime against humanity, it doesn't matter how big or how small, you as a hero should be there to interfere with this action. Wow, that was quite a lot of prelude, so to say, for moving into these 3 things. But what I think is kind of interesting is that they're saying that basically you can start, you're being born as the pacifist, right? You're being born as the neutral part, and then by the take of society, your take of society, your perception of society, or more importantly, society's perception of you, it's going to shape you into becoming this either really good hero, really good person, or the perpetrator of evil, this really bad person, or you're just going to keep on being neutral, growing up in a society where no one either clanks down or you all believe that you're any better than you are. And that is, well, Kind of interesting. But based on this idea, what they're saying is that you can, in theory, then move in between these things. And I would like to argue that it's not just a theory, it's something that's happening all of the time. As I was discussing quite recently with the ups and downs videos, you have ups and you have downs. And probably, right, these are things that are happening a lot of the time. Perhaps not every single day. Maybe it happens every single day, but maybe not every second, every minute of every day. But might be that you're going in a general direction of, well, I'm on an up this week, and then the next week you might be on a down for a few days before you go up again. And I would argue, based on your perception then, based on your mindset of when you're up or when you're down, based on, well, the contextualized variables in society that are going to, affect your up and downs, let's say. You probably have some internal factors as well, but it's mostly going to be external factors that affect you and your perception of these external factors that makes you go on up and up, or a high, so to say, or if you're going down on a low, which I thought is what I rather than thought was quite interesting with combining that concept of ups and downs with this of these three paths, is that I would believe, and I would argue that you're always either a perpetrator of evil or a hero. And you're almost never in this passive, inactive state of just silently supporting one or the other. And what do I mean with that? Well, basically is that I would argue that as long as you're on a high, and wow, I have some stuff here, but yeah, this is just a shirt I use for the gym because this just ain't going away in the wash. So just keep that in mind and not being in the comment section like, you have dirty clothes, mate. And I'm like, yeah, I know. Anyway. The entire idea that I was trying to connect these two is that when you're on a high, when you're on an up, so to say, you will probably always be a hero. Because if everything is going well for you and you're happy, and this is the definition of being on a high right here, or being in an up, it's not necessarily that everything works in your favor, but also that you believe that everything is working in your favor. You are happy with the circumstances. Maybe you're dropping your cupcake, but maybe that, and that is perceived as a low for some people, but you are seeing it as a high or as an up because you're feeling like, wow, that's calories I don't have to eat. Maybe you're having a bit of an indecisive process there if you should take it or not. You can probably look into the video about that if you want to know more about ups and downs. Anyway, so my perception is that, or my take of this entire discussion is that if you're on an up, you're probably always going to perceive things that is going on around you as if you were a hero, and you will always try to be the best that you can be and help other people in the state of mind based on what as I said, the contextualized valuables or variables are in that specific situation. However, if you're on a low and the same thing is happening to you, no matter what it is, I would argue, right? Even though there are probably yet again some extreme cases when you would act like a hero in either situation or act evil in either situation. But let's just say that the 99.9999% of when we're in the gray area that makes up, the bulk of reality and the bulk of all decisions is that when you're on a low, you're probably always going to act in alignment with the perpetuity of evil. Why? Well, because based on the contextualized variables around you, you're going to say that, well, I'm on a down, I'm really mad, I'm only thinking about myself, everything is going badly, and now I want to, do something bad. I don't know why, but you're in that kind of mindset. So if something happens, you're already inclined to do one of the other. You're already on the path of becoming a hero, or you're on the path of becoming a perpetrator of evil. At least that's my take of it, right? And my argument for why you're very rarely in this passive interactive state or this passive inaction state is because I'd say that's the only place you are that is in two times, when you change from, this is going to be so hard without any form of graph, but if you believe that you have one line, and you're going up and down, over the line, over, under, exactly when you cross the line, when the value is zero, so to say, when it's not neither positive nor negative, that is where you will act passive and inaction. But that won't tend to happen that much. The bulk of the time, so to say, the majority of the time, you're either going to be over or under the line. But when you are on the line, which is happening a rare amount of cases, or is misrepresented based on or not misrepresented, but a minority of the time when you're traveling up and down, that is when you're going to be in the passive state. So something that I took in when I was reading it, and I was like, they're trying to say that most people are inactive all of the time, like most people are passive, or at least that was my take on it, right? That they were trying to say that most people are actually passive in their everyday lives. While I would argue that no, our lives is made up of heroes and perpetrators of evil, more so than people that are passive in between. It might just be that I've gotten the wrong understanding of what is actually, a hero and what is actually the perpetrator of evil. Maybe that they're saying that, or actually acknowledging the ups and downs, but saying that, well, you're actually a hero when you're at the very, 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 very top of your tops. So even though you're going up and down, up and down, up and down all the time, you're not a hero until you reach your peak top yet. That's when you're actually becoming a hero. And your peak down, so to say, or the lowest possible point, that's when you're becoming a perpetrator of evil. And all the things in between these two peaks, these two extreme points, is when you're actually passive and inactive, and you don't tend to act in any particular way. Because, well, even though you're happy or even though you're sad, you're not happy enough to become a hero. You're not sad enough to be a perpetrator of evil. So that means that you're still in the slot of, or rather in the cubicle, so to say, of passive, no matter if you're over or under the line, until you reach these extreme points. And then based on how often you reach these extreme points, then you're going to be a hero more often, or a perpetrator of evil more often. That could be the case, that could be their take on it all, and I'd see their point of view if that is how it is, even though I would argue that, well, is it really true? But if you bring into that, well, that mindset, if we say that that's how they were working with this, if that's their interpretation of the ups and downs in conjunction with these three paths, I would like to see that maybe if you're positive, you're more inclined to becoming a hero as of that day. Maybe you can more inclined to peak if something happens that triggers that. And if you're under, maybe you're more inclined to becoming a perpetrator of evil if something happens that will trigger you in a negative way. But based on that you're not reaching your peaks in any way, shape, or fashion, you are still in the passive, middle stage. However, you are yet again tending on moving towards one or the other all of the time. Kind of going back to the idea that they were presenting that people aren't always, as they were born, based on the contextualized variables around you, the chaotic environment around you, that your magnificent brain is trying to make any sense of based on stereotype management, right? You're going to move between being good and being evil all of the time. And well, if we're just taking this approach as well before we end this, because I'm seeing I have like 2.5 minutes left on the DSLR. Let's say that the peak is hero, the peak in the bottom, like the peak at the top is hero, peak at the bottom is perpetrator of evil. In the middle, it's passive. I'd say that when you're in a positive state, over the line, you are just good. And when you're on the negative spectrum, you're bad, but you're not evil, you're not a hero until you reach those peaks. That's a compromise here. I would also like to argue, or like to state that in this psychology of evil, they don't actually take up ups and downs. This is just my interpretation, trying to connect my ups and downs theory and concept, right? Or mine is probably the wrong word. People are actually probably talked about that a lot of the time, but I haven't read it specifically anywhere, right? So my interpretation of the ups and downs in conjunction with these different three paths, that's yet again a perpetration of evil, guilty of passive inaction, or the path of you becoming a hero. So trying to combine these three so that you don't, or these four actually, these three paths and this idea of ups and downs. You don't go into school, right, or anywhere and basing this as your conclusion, right, and saying now, well, did you know that in the psychology of evil they're talking lots about ups and downs, and everybody's gonna stand there and be like, what, really, are they? Did I miss something when I was reading it through? And it's like, yeah, no, maybe I was wrong. That's not how it is, right? This is just me trying to connect two different ideas. Anyway, that was it for me today, mate. It's going to be back tomorrow with either Milgram's experiment about, perceived authority, or the Stanford prison experiment. I'm not really sure which one I put of tomorrow and which one is the 2nd of April, but we'll get to it in a moment, mates. In a couple of days anyways. We're going to be covering both of them. So, until then, mates, have a nice day, and I'll see you tomorrow.